Welcome to our Devos. As we conclude this week, we have been talking about the early life of Jesus. And as you know, there hasn't been a lot written about the early life of Jesus. So we are focusing on what the Bible does tell us that happened in those formative years, in Jesus' childhood and his adolescence, all the way leading up to his young adulthood, before he entered public ministry and did the event and participated in the events that consume the majority of the Gospels. Well, today we want to look at that verse one more time that we've been looking at, and that's in Luke chapter 2, verse 52. It says, Jesus increased. Remember, increase means to cut a path forward. To cut a path forward. So Jesus continued to develop, to cut a path forward in wisdom and in stature, and it says, in favor with God and with man. This, in my opinion, is the most important part of Jesus' formative years, because this is what pretty much consumes his ministry as well. It comes down to this: love God and love others. I know that, some of you that are like really deep and you know your theology well and you've been a Christian a long time, when a preacher like me that, is trying to give you something a little heavier comes up with a simple statement, love God and love others, you're like, oh, come on, like give me the meat, man, give me the meat. Well, here's what I know, okay? If you look at what Jesus said and how to handle people and how to deal with people, most of what Jesus talks about has to deal with how we love others and how we love God. When the disciples asked Jesus what was most important of all the commandments, Jesus said, love God first and love others as yourself. And then Jesus makes the most bold and audacious claim later when he is talking to his disciples. In John chapter 13, he says verse 35, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Now, the gravity of that statement cannot be oversold. Jesus is saying, the way that I love you, I want you to treat and love other people that way. Well, how did he love us? He loved us by giving his life for us. He loved us with a fervent, sacrificial love that is of divine origin, that acts based on what he wanted to do and not on our behavior. It was a merit-free love system where we weren't earning God's love, but God was giving it freely and hurting in order to give it. He says, the way that I love you, that's the way I want you to love others. So in Jesus' early years, we see that he grew in favor with God and with man. He grew closer to his heavenly Father. He matured in his heavenly Father. He spent time with his heavenly Father while on earth. And then on top of that, it says that he grew in favor with God and man. This should be a part of the blueprint for your life. You should be looking for ways to love others the way that Jesus loved you. You should be looking for ways to grow closer to God and draw more by his side as you learn more about him. It's that simple and it's that hard, because there's so many things that can get in the way of us staying on mission. But God's mission is simple. You love him first, and you love others the way that you love yourself and the way that Jesus loved you. So when you think about those around you that do not know who Jesus is, when you think about those that you work with who do not know who Jesus is, when you think about your family members that, are struggling, and some that were Christians, but they're kind of, maybe in a bad way, or they're having difficulties, I want you to think about God's mission of telling us to love others. You love others by drawing them closer to him and by trying to connect them to the God that loves you and loves them with the same amount of fervency. Don't lose sight of the main thing. Jesus matured. He increased in his love for man and his love for God. And that's exactly what God is calling us to do today.